What is up, amazing people? You are listening to Release Your Inner Power podcast, where we share stories about experiences and the paths we have walked that make us who we are. There is encouragement, tools, and tips from special guests to help take those steps to release that inner power. I'm your host, Shauna B. Here we go. Are you tired of feeling overwhelmed and stuck in the chaos of life? It's time to reclaim your peace and your power. Guess what? I have something for you. A free checklist that will transform your days from chaos to calm, helping you boost your day and set yourself up for success. Just imagine waking up each morning with more clarity and purpose, ready to tackle whatever comes your way. This checklist is designed specifically for women like you who are ready to prioritize their well-being and their productivity during the day. Simple yet powerful strategies, this checklist will guide you through creating a morning routine that sets a positive tone for your entire day. Say goodbye to stress and hello to more calmness. From mindfulness practices to time management tips, each item on this list is carefully made to help you get a sense of calm amidst all of the chaos in daily life. You'll be amazed on how small changes can make such a big difference. Don't let another day slip by feeling overwhelmed and frazzled. Get your free checklist and start this journey from chaos to calm. It's time to take control of your life, my friend, and thrive. Check out the show notes for the link to get your checklist today. And remember, you deserve to feel empowered, motivated, and some more in each day of your life. This next guest is Becchi. Becchi is a mindset transformation coach and energy enthusiast. She has such an amazing personal story of transformation and perspective, and all the while encouraging others on their own unique healing journey. It's quite an amazing story. If you are feeling stuck or struggling or need a bit of inspiration, come check out this story and check out her 4-H awareness that she will go into in this episode that helps you forge your own path to wellness. Let's have a chat with Becchi. Hello. Welcome back to Release Your Inner Power podcast. We have a guest today. Her name is Becchi. Welcome, Becchi. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Shauna. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I want to just dive right in because I think you have a beautiful story and I cannot wait for you to share it with the listeners. So tell us who Becchi is and what your story is and how you got to where you are at today.
Sure. So I am a wife and mother of 4. 3 of my children are officially teenagers. I am a homeschooling mom and a mindset transformation coach and youth and teen wellness coach. I would say that, funny, if we were having this conversation a year ago, that would have been the end of, I wouldn't even had that in my story. It just would have been, I'm a mom of 4 with MS. And that would have really been the story that I told, unfortunately. At this time, now I'm glad you're catching me now, because then I get to add the mindset transformation coach and youth and teen wellness coach. And I've returned to my music. And so I'm a singer, writer, musician, and I return to music in an interesting way now, where I'm creating musical mantras for people and guided meditations. And I went back to school this last year to finish a bachelor's in metaphysical sciences. So there's a lot more depth to my life right now. Prior to last year, I had a long string, decades of feeling unwell. And that all kind of came to a head in 2012 when I say that my life flipped upside down. And I literally mean that, because I was out with my kids and we was looking at an aquarium tank. I turned to the side and my vision flipped upside down. And it wasn't like spinning, it was just my vision flipped upside down. And I spent a good month and a half after that in physical therapy, trying to regain my balance using a walker. Eventually, after a lot of testing, led to the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. So the 10 years from 2012 to like 2022 was really a blur, to be honest. It was a lot of added diagnoses. It was just a growing list that continued. And I kind of always saw MS as the big, bad, ugly one. So in my mind, everything was being created by the MS. Um, and the truth is that I lived in this belief. It had gotten so ingrained in me that I had no control, that this was something that was happening to me. And when we feel like that, it's so hard to get out of that mindset because it feeds that victim mentality. It makes us feel powerless. And so we kind of give into that. And before we know it, we're living a life that we didn't really sign up for. And it's not necessarily that something else outside of us is creating it, but that we're allowing our mindset to create this further. And I was so stuck in that for so long. I feel like I've always been a really positive person at the core. So I was always smiling. I always had really great perspective and see the silver lining. But on the inside, I was really struggling and I was really hurting. It was really hard for me, especially as a mother, and your mother. So I'm sure you can understand that. Like you it's a scary thought to think forward and go, I don't know what this means. I don't know where this diagnosis can lead. All I've seen is the part that falls apart. I see people talking about how bad it gets. And I'm just thinking, what happens 2 years from now when I can't be there for my children in the ways that I am now? Am I going to be in a wheelchair in 5 years? And that the uncertainty started to build so much anxiety inside of me that I got to a point where I was almost unable to function. Um, I would say that for most of 2022, I didn't really see anybody. I'd go to family functions, but I didn't even make plans anymore because I knew that once I made the plans in my mind, I was not going to be well enough to see the plan through. And it was easier for me to just not do a thing at all than to try to do a thing and then feel defeated because it wouldn't happen. And so I got to the end of 2022 and I just had looked back and I thought, you know what, I had almost 2 decades, 2 solid decades of really difficult health issues at that point. And I had then added, fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome and dysautonomia, and the list went on and on. And I was so stuck in my anxiety at that point that then I was adding this extra level. I had this like extra layer of anxiety attacks that I was constantly having and feeling I don't know if I would categorize it as depression, but I mean I was feeling pretty low. I was really struggling. Um and getting to the end of 2022, I had this kind of like epiphany moment because I realized that I had to step back a little bit. In 2021, I got another diagnosis of LPR, and um, in so many words, it's kind of in the family of like acid reflux. Well, what happened was it had gotten so bad, my inflammation in my body was so bad, and of course, I see the connection now between inflammatory diseases and autoimmune diseases, and the connection with the level of inflammation in my body. At that time, I didn't. I just thought, oh, okay, I have some acid reflux going on. But I had gone to the hospital in 2021 8 times thinking I was having a heart attack, which I later realized was the level of inflammation in my esophagus matched with the anxiety that I was feeling on a daily basis. And I decided that I was going to I was going to make a change. And at that moment in 2021 of October 31st, I thought, I'm going to control the thing I can control here. I feel like I can't control much, but I can control the foods I'm putting in my body and see what that does for me on a physical level. Well, I never went back. I assigned myself up for this program for 28 days and said to myself, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to start eating these high alkaline foods and ridding my body of these acidic foods that are feeding this inflammation. And I felt so good after that physically that I thought I can't go back. I have to stay on this track because this is my confirmation, right? This is in real time showing me that it matters. The foods that I'm eating matter. And I had spent my whole life not eating in healthy ways at all. And so this was that wake up moment. And it was something that came out of a moment of desperation, of the pain, of the anxiety. But I thought this is something I can control. And so for once in the last 2 decades of all these health issues, it was like, now this is something I can hold on to. This is something that I can change the course with. Um, and so that was kind of the big starting point for me. And I didn't really realize until I got to the end of 2022 and I thought, I've done this work. I've done this really hard work with my eating habits and it served me really well. But this mental part is not catching up yet. Like I'm really struggling here. And so the big change for me happened coming into 2023. It was literally like New Year's Day. And I'm like, if I don't change something else here to get myself out of this cycle that I'm in of this horrible worry, I don't know what's going to happen. Honestly, it's going in a really bad direction. So January 1st, 2023, I decided two things I was going to do. The first was that I was going to stop waiting to feel energetic enough to do something productive. And I was going to do productive things to feel energized. And that was a huge mindset shift for me that I didn't even know I needed. But the truth was, I had woken up for years every day and thought, I feel miserable. How am I going to get through today? I don't feel well today. I have to go cancel that plan. How am I going to make dinner for my kids tonight? I mean, like the thought, that's what I woke up with. I wasn't waking up feeling energized. I wasn't waking up feeling hopeful about the day. It was just overwhelming worry and sadness, to be honest. And so I decided I was going to start doing productive things. And that looked very small at the start because at the start, I was depending on my family for a lot for my food to bring me my medicine. I mean, I was in a pretty bad state at that point. Um, and sure enough, I found that every day that I started doing just a little something for myself, whether that was a few minutes of yoga, a few minutes of watching my favorite movie, a few minutes of talking with a friend, all of a sudden, I was starting to feel that energy come back. That inner chi was moving. Something was happening. And the course of my life just started changing. Now, the added layer of that was that I also decided I was going to stop talking about my illnesses. And that was the second part that was huge and transformational for me because I realized that's all I did for decades. I had an amazing support system, but they were always so concerned about me that they would ask, how are you doing? When, do you have another treatment coming up? When is your next appointment? They'd love to check in with me. And I appreciated that. What I didn't realize at the time is that that was really, it was just keeping me in the sickness mode. It was keeping me in that mindset of I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick. And I had to get out of that. And so I spent very intentionally the first 6 months of last year where I was any time that a thought about my illness came into my mind, I had to put it right out. And I was like, nope, I'm already healing from that. Nope, it's not even in my body anymore. I'm addressing that with the foods I'm eating. I'm addressing that with the positive thoughts that I'm keeping. And it took me a good solid 6 months. And we know that, when we're creating these neural pathways and we're creating new ones, that it takes a lot of repetition. And so I was on board for that. I was like, whatever I need to do to make sure that I change the way that I think about this, that's going to matter. And sure enough, once I got to like the middle of the year, it's like somebody asked me, I almost had to like remind myself, like, oh yeah, that's the story I told you because that was my life before. And now I feel so far removed from it because my mindset is just in a different place now where I'm willing to just see myself now for where I am and just know that at any moment I have the power to tap into where I am right now and what I am capable of, what I'm able to control. And that's been a huge game changer for me.
It sounds like you've had a lot of game changers, girl. Sounds like you've taken a lot of steps to, even if you were just like sticking a toe in, when you were saying like you were done with this, you don't want to feel like this anymore, but then just even sticking a toe in is like bringing other things up, like, oh, I can do this. Like when you were saying with the food thing and just starting that and then feeling different, it kind of like ignited you in a way of like, oh wait, there's more. Like, oh, I can do more things, and then when you started getting your whole routine of like food and getting the inflammation down in your body and having that, you're like, time to work on the mind. I'm done being stuck there, right? So then you were like working on that, but how intentional you were just because of how good you were feeling and the difference that you were feeling with everything that was going on. So awesome job for you for taking those big steps to move you through that and not stay stuck. Like that's such an amazing process. And I commend you for taking it because look where you are now. Like look how you are now, even from, 3 years ago, it's like night and day. Like you said, it's totally different, right? All because you decided to just stick a toe in and change something up.
Thank you so much for saying that. And that's like one of the most, I think, the thing, you're so right. And then when we share that with people, we can inspire them to feel empowered to do the same thing, because a lot of times that's all it takes is we just want that confirmation, right? We want to see that something's working. I mean, this is like when we do a diet or something, we want those first 5 pounds to fall off so that we're like, oh, this thing is actually working. I can keep eating those foods that maybe aren't my favorite foods, but they're serving me well.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what it was. I was just like this for like almost 2 decades of my adult life. I wasn't trying new things. I wasn't attempting anything because I just felt too stuck. And so sometimes, just even if you don't believe it, telling yourself that you're going to get yourself unstuck from this thing is, it's mind blowing actually how transformational that can be, just to decide that your mindset is going to change about something and then watch that the thing actually changes. And one of the things that I also wanted to share with your listeners, this is something that I just created for myself. I call it this just because it's just a catchy little thing, but I call it my 4-H awareness. And I started using this last year. And I think it's really helpful for people that feel like sometimes it just feels like the decision to do the thing is too big, right? The place that I was in, it felt like a huge decision to say, oh, I don't have these illnesses anymore. I'm not even going to think about them. Or a huge decision to say, I'm going to totally change the way that I eat and never look back. And sometimes the situations we find ourselves in, that just feels a little too heavy. So something that I started doing was this 4-H awareness, because I had this like aha moment one day where I went, it doesn't have to feel that big or heavy if we just realize that every single choice we make in life is one of these 4-H's. It's either harming and hurting us or helping and healing us. And when I had that like realization, I thought, well, I can bring everything down to this moment, because we make hundreds of decisions a day, not just big ones that are going to impact the trajectory of our lives, but we make them every day and in every moment. And if we stop and have enough awareness to sit just in that moment and go, is this choice I'm making right now, whatever it is, this person I'm going to spend time with, this food I'm about to eat, this negative self-talk that I'm having in my mind right now, is this hurting or harming me? Or is this helping and healing me? And sometimes just being able to center yourself enough in that moment, if you can make those small choices along the way, all of a sudden you realize they're turning into very big choices. And now you realize, no, you didn't go hang out with that person 4 or 5 times now, because you've convinced yourself every time that, wait, yeah, that's not what I want to do with my time today. That's not the right environment for me. And now a month from now, you're like, oh my gosh, I actually decided we shouldn't even talk anymore. And now, wow, that feels lighter. And again, like you said, then that's the thing, right? That's the motivation, that's the endpoint, that's the I met some milestone that showed me that this is working. And then you go to the next thing and you're like, this food that I'm eating, I love it. It tastes amazing. I feel like garbage for the next 2 days when I eat it again. And then you make that choice every time until it's a natural transition into the bigger choices. And I just wanted to offer that up, because sometimes we need the small choices, right? To be able to feel like we can ever get to a point where we make the big decisions. So
Yeah, thank you for that. I love that. That is a great, great tip and tool to use when things feel too heavy and when things feel too big, and to utilize that to help us make the decision, because you get decision fatigue and you're just like, I don't want to decide anything else. So that's super helpful to to use that tool to decide. And like you said, it takes once you make those decisions, it takes time to practice. It's kind of like building a muscle, if you will. So the next time you do that, when it gets lighter, like you said, it gets lighter. You're building the muscle. So then it's easier when those heavy decisions come. You're like, I got this. I've done this before. This is how I can do it. And then it ends up becoming a habit of how you do it. So then you can react to it faster. So then again, it's not so heavy. Doesn't mean that you can't make the hard decision, that it's not going to be always the same. It's just you recognize it faster and it's easier because you have the tools. And so you can do that as long as you practice and build that muscle up. I think it's great that you shared that. Thank you.
yeah, of course. The tools are so helpful.
They
There's
are.
so much.
They are. So you were saying that you are a mom of four. I have some questions about that, about your momhood. So through your journey through all of this, Did your momhood start before all of your diagnosis things were happening, or was it like during your journey? I'm just curious about your momhood and what that looked like for you with, you going through this journey, but and being a mom and how you did all of that together.
Yeah, so my health, I would say that my health issues concerns happened far prior to having children. But I had three of my four children when I was diagnosed with MS. So I was already in the throes of motherhood when I was starting to get the answers, and when the treatment started and the injection started, all of that was with children, and so that was a lot. Thankfully, I had a very supportive husband, and again, like I said, very supportive support system. But it was a lot to maneuver, and I think that that's why that element of anxiety. If we were just single women out in the world dealing with something, okay, it just affects me. When you have children, it's a whole nother ball game, and so I think that that added very quickly to my processing and how that turned into anxiety. It was a very quick jump, to be honest. It just increased as the years went on. And I think that at the time it was hard for me too, I think at the start, because I was very much in the mindset of just keep going, just keep pushing through, just keep showing that you're strong and you've got this, and don't let them see that you're down, that that this is a struggle for you. And that really transitioned for me, because when I got in 2021, when I started the whole thing with the eating, which I didn't mention, the whole reason I ended up starting that process really was the inflammation got so bad that I couldn't swallow naturally. And I lost my ability to kind of speak, to swallow, to sing. And singing's been something that's been a joy for me my whole life. And I had to go to swallow therapy and speech therapy. And during that time, I think I learned a lot in that space, because I went to my children and I said, I'm really struggling. At this point, I'm really struggling. And it was kind of the first time that I had that conversation with them about how I was feeling. All along, as a mother, I had been checking with how they're feeling. How are they doing with this diagnosis, with the fact that I have to cancel plans sometimes? And they were so forgiving and so loving, and I'm so grateful for that. I got to a point where I said, this is a struggle for me, and I need your guys' help. I need you to help me. So every time you see me, every time you walk past me, I need you to say in your head or out loud to me, like, mommy's healing, mommy's being healed. And then they started doing that. They started rubbing my back when they'd walk by me, and they'd just say, mommy's healed, mommy's healed. And I thought, oh, that's so sweet. But over time, what I realized was it was actually changing the way that I even thought about everything. And so they've been like a lifeline for me through the whole thing. And it transitioned then into a space where I was able to say, no, this is hard and this is what's happening. And I think that that also was really healthy for them. It wasn't as healthy for them to just see me pushing through and being strong, although they noticed that. They would say like, oh, you're so strong, mom. But now it's like, I don't need them to tell me I'm strong. I just need them to understand that when they're facing their own adversity, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, that they're allowed that space to say, like, this is hard for me, because I don't want them to push through those things. It changes when you're a mom. One of the things that I find myself reminding myself now is that all the things that are good for me right now in my healing journey that I found are good for my children. So when I'm doing as an EFT practitioner, I love tapping. It's something that's been transformational for me. I've taught that to my children. I do that with them, and it helps them with their, emotional regulation and things like that. The foods that I'm eating, high alkaline, low acid foods to cut out the acidity and inflammation in my body, they're eating those foods, and I'm teaching them about why and helping them to make really smart decisions about what feels right in their body and listening to their body and getting cues from that, because all of that, the mind body connection and the mind body awareness, is something that was missing for me for so long. And now it's like this all kind of ties together now in this nice little package where I get to sit in front of my own children and say, this is the journey, but then they get to see me on the other side of it. And that's been really, really powerful. They always look at me this whole last year. They've just been like, mom, you're totally different. It's so weird to see you like this. But there is such a renewed hope within myself that I get to hold on to, and that they get to be witness to. So So thanks for asking about that. It's been quite a journey for sure.
Feel like that is so amazing and cool and like you said, powerful and like moving to go through all of that. Like, first of all, you're a very powerful and wonderful human being for having four children and going through, what you have. And like you said, going through your thoughts and working through your stuff, but then just how you transitioned through things and like led by example and learned yourself and then came to the realization like holy moly, this can like help my kids, and then they get to see it in action. Like, not only are you teaching them to be in tune with themselves and how to help themselves with all of that with the mind and body connection, but like even if they're like, yeah, yeah, mom, whatever, like you teaching them, but then they're visually seeing you actively go through it. And then they have to kind of hesitate and be like, wait, maybe mom does know what she's talking about. You know what I mean? Like it's so much more powerful with you like going through the motions and actions and them seeing you and the difference and how they said like you're a different person, and they're saying it's weird, but I bet you, like, if you asked them like 10 years from now, they're going to be like, that was so cool. Like, that is like that's what showed me, right? Is like your change in the difference, just through action and that's just so awesome to have. Like, what a gift to have to give them to get that early and now, right? And start that now versus
Yeah.
later, like us. We get that later and we get it, but now it's like passing the baton, to your kids and having them start that at such an early age is so awesome. That's just so awesome. That just makes my
Thanks.
heart so happy to hear that story. It's just great.
So sweet. Thank you so much for that. That's exactly it. I always say to them, they're probably like if they could stitch something on a pillow that I always say, it's like, I don't want you to wait till you're almost 40 to learn this because I'll be 40 at the end of February. And it's like I keep thinking if I had any one of these skills, just one, like I mean, there's a lot of different tips and techniques. As you know, you're a coach, like there's so many ways to go about it. And I'm teaching them a lot of them because I'm learning a lot of them and they all work for me. So I'm like, this is great. Let me share the knowledge. And I always say to them, I don't want you to do this when you're 40. If you can figure it out now, you're going to be, I mean, you're just going to be set up. There's going to be so much, you'll feel so much lighter. You won't be carrying the baggage for so long. You'll be able to sit with that awareness of, meeting your own needs, like sitting long enough to figure out what is a need and meeting that need. And that's been kind of at the core of this entire transformation for me. And I think at the core of probably everyone's transformation, when you get to that healing journey and you're like, there's a need that has to be met here, and I'm willing to do the work to meet that need for myself, is hugely, it's so transformational. So well, thanks
Yeah,
for
and
those
it
beautiful.
causes that it causes like it starts with you, right? But then it causes a ripple effect even if you didn't sit down and teach them, just them watching you still, right? It's still a ripple effect, which then they have it now, and then how is the ripple going to go from them, right? It just keeps growing. It's just so cool. It's just so cool. I just love it. Well,
So
tell
much.
me, you shared some things that you're passionate about. I heard you say singing, and I heard you say that you're a coach. I would love to hear more things that you are passionate about and how you help others in the world with, I'm sure, awareness of things that you've also gone through. I would love to hear you share some things about that.
Yeah, so well, one of the things actually is I created this space actually 3 months ago called Women's Weekly Wellness Wednesdays, because I just had this urge where I thought, you didn't go all through all of this for nothing. This is to be like shared and help encourage and inspire others on their own journey. And obviously, our journeys all look very different, but I feel like some of the wisdom, the tips, the techniques that we can share are very universal, honestly. So this is a space that I created. Today was slated to be our final session tonight, and I've had such beautiful feedback from the women coming who said that like, no, this is like their one time a week that they get for themselves to just to be with other women, and that it's a valuable space, that the tips and tricks are working. And so I'm very passionate about this space, and I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to continue with it. from now till whenever. We're not going to have an end date. We're just going to keep it moving, keep inviting people to the space. And that's been kind of my passion project. And it's just a very laid back space, but people get to come and share where they are that week. And then I bring a certain tip or technique to that week, and we discuss it and maybe even model it, put it into practice. And yeah, I've been enjoying that a lot. And then, singing has always been a passion of mine my whole life. And I'm going to be very honest that I never fully honored, I guess, my voice in any way. To be honest, I was very small and quiet about it, and I'm getting to a space now where it's like, okay, I think I'm ready to move into different spaces. So like I have my podcast set to drop, the Dealing with Your Healing podcast, at the end of February, and I've started cultivating this space on YouTube where I'm making like guided meditations and musical mantras, which are kind of like affirmation music, but they're also very relaxing. I have a lot of people have told me they use them for sleep and it helps put them to bed. So just finding ways that I'm using my own creativity and natural talents. And I feel like everybody has natural talents, and sometimes it takes us a while to tap into how we can use them to better serve others, or to help bring others into, especially if you've gone on your own healing journey, it is passion in you to share and want others to feel that well. And so those are kind of the spaces right now that I'm really sewing into and trying to make accessible to more people, and bring them some calm and peace in their own journeys, in their own lives.
I love that. I love that. I like that the Women's Weekly Wellness Wednesdays. How, if somebody wants to be a part of that space, how do they find that to be a part of that space with you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So on Facebook, I actually created a group there, and that's what it's called, Women's Weekly Wellness Wednesdays. I'm in the process right now of getting my website finalized, dealingwithyourhealing.com, where that will be a connective space for all of my things. But yes, that women's session runs every Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. Central, and you can find that group in Facebook. So thank you for asking.
No, I love it. I love that. That's such a wonderful space, and I think people should take advantage of that, especially, if it's connection and you get tips and all of that. That's such a wonderful space to have. So thank you for creating that space so people can come and share that.
Thank you so much, Shauna.
Well, I always like to ask my guests that are on, because of all of the things that we do and hats that we wear in our lives, if you would like to reveal one of your superpowers with us today.
You know what is funny? I think that my superpower it's also transformed. I think that my whole life, my superpower has been seeing a need in others and meeting the need. But just being able to figure out what it is how I can meet them in the moment, helping them to even uncover what their need is. I feel like this was just something natural in me since I was really young. Totally overlooking myself until this last year, not ever paying attention to the fact that I needed or could be my own superhero in my own story, and that I could actually discover what my needs were. And so now I feel like this last year has really shown me that my superpower has been there all along. I just needed to redirect the path, because now the superpower is that I get to fully understand and identify what my needs are, and meet them in really healthy, productive ways that continue this growth path that I'm on. So I would say that is mine. Thank you for asking.
I love that. I love that one. That's so great. I love that, to see the need and meet the need, and then how it transformed as well. That's so cool. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing. Well, I am so happy that you took this time and shared your story with us today and left us with some tips and tools to take with us, and that you shared your superpower. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me, Shauna.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, learned something new, or got some gems to take away that will boost your week. I release a new episode each week, so make sure to click that follow button to not miss what is coming next. If you love the show or want to share a story, send me a quick message. I love hearing from listeners. If you know someone who needs this episode in their life, go ahead and share it with them. I'm sure they would love you for it. If you are looking to connect more, check out the show notes for all the social links, my website. I would love to hear how this episode helped you and what you loved about it. If there's a topic you want to hear about, send that too. All right, ladies, now is the time to release your inner power.